I'm up here in a geologically sensitive area, and if I start shaking every day, well, that's going to get my attention, and that's going to get me to launch my boat. A lot of people in other areas should get their attention and get them up into the hills, especially also if we have an issue of animals doing that same kind of thing. Seabirds heading out to sea and other animals heading up into the hills. Now, this brings us along in a series of connections, really. Because of the solar activity, NASA's really out there busting their butt. There's all kinds of stuff coming back, and they're a little bit sloppy. They're not as, also because of the cutbacks and so on, as we predicted, more and more stuff was going to leak out. And if you go on over to the enterprisemission.com, which is Richard Hoagland's site, you'll see that he's got a very interesting article about Phobos, which is the small moon that orbits Mars, in which he basically goes along to the idea of proving that it's a hollow artificial structure. And this would be the second one that we've identified in our solar system. The first one being the strange moon of Iapetus, which has this really odd, unexplainable otherwise than intelligent control at some point orbit, and other structures on it. Now, the interesting thing about the whole Phobos issue is that I'm beyond the fact that it's probably hollow and he's probably correct, and it sure looks like it's manufactured, and everything he says about it is very accurate. Within there, he talks about this idea that there's this Obama secret space summit coming up, unannounced as to what they're going to talk about, correct? You heard about this?
Yes.
And his idea is that maybe they're going to talk about disclosure. Now, that brings me back around to the idea that I had the other day that, Ed Grimsley's out there getting people to buy these third-generation night vision goggles. And we've got fourth-generation goggles coming up and fourth-generation night vision scopes that are going to start falling in price relative to the general populace. And already, I am in the possession of a set of the third-generation goggles, and I've seen strange stuff whenever I can get a chemtrail-free day, and that also coincides with a rain-free day, appear very difficult. But every time I go out, I see some strange stuff overhead. And I'm in contact with a lot more people that are also getting these goggles and having a look at things, including people like Jay Widener. He went down with Ed and got trained by Ed. I couldn't do that for a bunch of different reasons, but in any event, at the time that he was with Ed, they saw like 80 objects that were basically unexplainable in our current rational understanding of the universe within the first hour. Plus, I've recently gotten some email from a guy in Scotland who's got a set of the goggles, and he's attempting to hook up with somebody who's got a video camera, he's in Northern England, he's Scottish, but they're seeing over there, because it was really cold, they also had a number of really clear nights, and he's started recording this and has a log, and he's seeing an active space battle going on with what have to be some kind of bursting weapons and some kind of laser weapons. Now, that sort of coincides with what I've actually seen here as well, because in one instance, I was pretty sure I saw some kind of a bursty weapon, like phaser-on kind of thing, from one group of these three delta-shaped craft and this spherical craft that was or object that was quite a ways away. So that level of stuff is going on. So what if we have a situation where the spread of the technology of third-generation night vision goggles is actually putting pressure on the powers that be, because they're starting to get to a position where more and more people can look up and see what's going on, and therefore it's a question of, do I believe the Wolf Blitzer version of the world, or do I believe my own lying eyes? And, well, I'm going to believe my own eyes because I'm pretty sure they're not going to really be lying to me the way that Wolf Blitzer is. And so more and more of us that do this, and it may indeed be that we're going to face a situation here, and may be doing so now, where the powers that be have said to the minions, well, you better do disclosure. We're kind of in a bind.
That makes sense. That really does.
Well, you've got Ed out there. He's taking groups of people out. There's this guy in Northern England who's got, basically the whole pub going out and looking at the space battle over them. We've got weird stuff in our data suggesting that the battle itself is going to heat up to the point where debris rains down on us poor fellows down here. And so the powers that be may indeed have finally reached a point where they reasonably don't have control of the situation anymore. Once again, going back to the whole balance of the universe kind of thing. And as being in Aikido, balance is never that sweet spot in the middle, because you only pass through that briefly, right? And so you're always swinging back and forth. And it's that kind of thing that we see in universe, not a steady state sort of a balance, but a more chaotic lurching towards balance.
Of course, if that is our state, it's going to be reflected that way. But the more that we remain a little steadier, that helps.
Yes. And that's why if you know how to roll, you'll be a lot lighter on your feet, because you won't fear the rolling part, the falling part, right?
Very true.
Right. Nice to have mastered Ukemi.
Yes. Oh, it saved my butt a number of times. Yes, no question about that. But and now we have to look at it, though, in a flexible mind kind of a way as well, because we may be presented with disclosure. And, there's all these people out on the Internet. A lot of them I like, they're very engaging personalities, like, what's that guy's name? David Wilcock. He's out there creating videos, and he's, working his poor butt off on all this stuff, and he really sees disclosure coming, and he's all excited about it. He's a little naive in my viewpoint, but that, I think, is age-related more than anything. But one of the things that you never hear any of these people discuss is what happens afterwards. Think of how surreal it would be if disclosure happened. They opened up the Earth for tourists, and 2 weeks from now in downtown Yelm, you've got space aliens trucking about saying, what's local, let's get fishing licenses, all this kind of thing, right? No one ever discusses how we're going to cope with on Mars, with the social disruption that will occur the minute that disclosure is officially announced. And it's more than just the horrid crimes that have been going for 50 or 60 years. It's more than the breakaway civilization. Just at the core level of what will humans do in our relationships with each other when we're aware that the non-human is among us on a daily basis, officially. It's going to create some really strange conditions, I think.
That kind of reminds me of that series Flash Forward, because where everybody is knocked out on the whole planet for 2 minutes.
I saw the first one of those and have never been able to catch any of the others. I was quite intrigued, though.
Yeah, they're on web. But anyway, the thing about that experience was everyone had something in common, and you could talk to a stranger and say, well, what did you see in your Flash future dream, and I would think that this would kind of have impact like that as well.
I think you're quite correct. There would be that "where were you" kind of thing, like Kennedy assassination.
Right.
That kind of a deal. There would be that commonly shared experience across the whole planet. That really is a binding sort of a social. Well, again, maybe that's going to be part of the balance. Maybe the disruptive features of all of us having to come to individual terms with a new place in universe may be compensated for at a universal level by the common suffering of it all and experience of it all. But anyway, we may actually, according to Richard Hoagland, be approaching that period of time. And I think there's other pressures out there in the environment, as much as I never thought I'd see it happen, simply because I know politicians, no one wants to stand up and say, we did this, right? Because look what they're actually confessing to. They're confessing that the government knows about space aliens, but much more than that. They're confessing, basically, that it's true. All these people that have been dealing with free energy for all these years were assassinated. All those people that were killed for what they knew about UFOs were done so because of the shadow people within our own organizations that we're paying for. And basically, we're all complicit to our own duping by propagandists because we're paying for it. We're also complicit in paying for the death and destruction of who knows how many people who merely stumbled on the truth. And I didn't think any politician would ever want to admit that, because it opens up this huge can of worms, retribution, suits, and all that kind of thing. Maybe not, though. Maybe the experience will be so shattering to our collective psyche that we don't go that way. Maybe we all instantly give up lawyers, and everybody who's a lawyer gives it up as a profession and takes up honest work. Who knows?
Well, here's where that mind flexibility is so important, because there's that monkey mind wants to know what's coming. And if it's unknown, you can't know.
Right.
So
it's a nasty little evil thing, yeah.
It is. But it's manageable. It's the controllable. Like the aliens amongst us, if we dare to call them aliens, will possibly look way different. And that can be startling, but we already deal with animals. They look very different. They're all furry and everything, and yet we think we can communicate with them very well. It's only a little step beyond that. It's just what we get used to. That is, I think, a big
Well, there's also the
something.
rigidity of the paradigm, and that's what scares me. Because you have we're talking among ourselves, and to some great extent, with some degree variant among us, but nonetheless common to all of us, we are aware that things ain't as we're told. And so, therefore, our view of the